catch Steve. What was his name? Well, he was in Ketchikan, Alaska. Sorry,
Yeah.
I forget his name. All right. Well, tonight is we're getting ready for Shabbos Mevarchim, the month of Menachem Av, and we've ready this. We're in the 3 weeks. Last week was Thursday night was the fast. Thursday was the fast of the 17th of Tammuz, and we have this week's parsha is also Parshas Matos and Masei, which is a double parsha. Hold on a second, Pinchasin, and it's also Parshas Chazak. Hey Pinchas, we complete the fourth of the L'chaim. We complete the fourth
L'chaim. Server was down.
No problem. We complete the fourth of the 5 books of the Torah, and Midbar is starting from Devarim, which is next week, and Shabbos Chazon is we start getting ready for the it's Mishnah Torah. It's the repetition of the Torah, because Moshe Rabbeinu is telling us over before he passes away all the final laws that are repeated, and as well as the happenings, what happened to the Jewish people over our history. So it's a big parsha, because we actually hold on. Let me see that these guys in. It's a big parsha because we actually complete the main 4 books. It's known as the main 4 books of the Torah complete. Chaim Sachar, you on your boat? So yeah, mute. So oh wow, beautiful, nice, lovely. Hey Matthew, been a while. Hey Jeremy. So it's there's a lot going on in the parsha. Just to talk about the happenings of the parsha. There's a lot of details of the parsha and the time of the year that we're living in. So let's try to go through a bit of the parsha. Matos, the word Matos is an interesting name that is referring to the heads of the Jewish people. The Jewish people are usually called Shvatim, a Shevet. And there's a difference between a Shevet and a Mato, actually, thinking of it, that a Shevet is a branch is still connected, and it's softer, where you have a Mata is a staff. A staff is usually from a tree that's been, or branch that's been broken off, and it's hardened. So you have a Mata is a staff that takes a person on a journey, which is really how these 2 parshas go together. Because when a person's getting ready to go on a Masei, which is the second parsha, which is the journeys of the Jewish people, you have to have a staff. And these ideas actually, I want to just shout out to a dear friend of mine who needs a refuah shlema, Moshe Schloss, who's a teacher and an educator and an inspiration to us all here in Jerusalem, in Yerushalayim. He lives in the old city with his wife Leah and his lovely family. So he needs a refuah shlema. So many years ago, he told me, he said like this, he said that my birthday is this week. So he told me that you were born in Matos Masei. He says that Matos and Masei are the two tools that you take in life. One is to have the sturdiness of a staff, right? To have the sturdiness, the solidness of a staff. And also in life, you have to know life is a journey. You have to be ready to travel in life. But when you travel in life, you have to have the right tools, which are the staff to take us through our journey. And this is really it's not just an idea. The Baal Shem Tov actually teaches us that the Holy Baal Shem Tov teaches us that the 42 travels of the Jewish people that are mentioned in this week's parsha are the 42 travels of everyone in their life. It's not something that happened once upon a time. We don't open the Torah and read about the 42 travels of the Jewish people, which is the second parsha of this week, which is that you open up and say, oh, the Jews were here, and then they went there, and they were there, they went to the next place, and then they ended up on the Jordan River, getting ready to go into Eretz Yisrael on the east side of the river. Baal Shem says, no such thing. The 42 travels of the Jewish people are in every person's life, as an individual and the Jewish people collectively. Means from the time of the leaving Mitzrayim the first time until Moshiach comes, the Jewish people are traveling as a people, 42 travels. And we're getting ready to go now, like the Rebbe says, Moshiach, Moshiach. Moshiach is coming any minute. It's mamish something that's going to happen any minute. So right now, we have to imagine we're on the banks of the Jordan River, getting ready to go into Eretz Yisrael, Ad Yavram Hashem, Ad Yavram Zukanisa, getting ready to go into the second or the third time you enter the land. Depends how you look at this, the time he came in for the second temple with Ezra. So we're getting ready to come into the land another time, and this time with Moshiach Tzidkenu, this time the building of the third base of Mikdash, and this time it's going to be a time that we're not going to go back into exile. So the Jewish people collectively traveled 42 travels. And so too, the Baal Shem Tov says, is in every person's life as an individual. An individual is always traveling. So we're always traveling through the travels of life. And in the travels, we are in different places. And like the Alter Rebbe explains, that Masei b'nei Yisrael, what does it mean to travel? From the Yetzias Mitzrayim, we're leaving. These are the travels the Jewish people did when they left Egypt. So the Alter Rebbe says we only left Egypt once. The first travel, the first time we packed our bags on the 15th of Nisan, we left Egypt. After that, we left the place that we were in the day before, or the week before, the year before. We didn't leave 42 times Egypt. We only left Egypt once. The next time we traveled, we left another place, wherever we were. If we were in Refidim, we left Refidim. We were at the mountain, we left the mountain. So why does the Torah say that these are the travels we left Egypt? So the Alter Rebbe explains is because every time you're in life, every time you're ready for the next travel, you realize that where you are presently is Egypt, meaning to say you have so much more that you could accomplish. Because where you're holding now is limiting, and your next travel in life is going to be even another Yetzias Mitzrayim, another leaving limitations, because Mitzrayim means limitations. Meitzar Meitzar Yam, leaving the restrictions of life. And here's an amazing thing that the Rebbe teaches us, is that not every travel is going forward. Not every time that we leave somewhere in life are we going seemingly forward. We don't see that we're going forward. It says the Jewish people were very disheartened when they traveled, because sometimes when they traveled, they went backwards. They thought they were making progress. They thought they were getting ready to go into the land. They thought tomorrow we're going to be another feet, another mile, another kilometer closer to Eretz Yisrael. And when they looked at it, they realized they went backwards. And they thought, they got very disheartened. What does it mean to go backwards? Why are we going backwards? We're trying to make progress in life, and we're trying to get to the Eretz Yisrael of our life. Why are we moving backwards? And the Rebbe teaches us that sometimes moving backwards is progress. Because sometimes in life, you can't, when you're moving backwards, you think that this is a setback, but really the setbacks themselves are progress. You just don't see it that way. We see it as a setback, and the smart and the focused person has to take the understanding to know that sometimes the setback is progress. And what gives us the strength to go through all these travels, forward and backwards, and to go all these travels in a way that even though sometimes it seems like, hello, Dr. Susan, is a setback, it's really progress. That's Parshas Matos, that's the staff. The staff is sturdy. A staff doesn't get disheartened. The staff is a strong piece of wood that's solid, and it's going to be there in all your situations. Moshe Rabbeinu, every time he went somewhere that was threatening, that he was concerned to go to, whether it was to face Paroi or facing the sea or other things, or facing the rock, he went with his staff. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu go with his staff? He went with his staff because it was support for the mission that had to go. These were not easy situations. And what's the most interesting thing is that we learn in this life of Moshe Rabbeinu, which was told us over and over again, that Moshe Rabbeinu faced tremendous challenges. He faced challenges in Midian, before Midian, right? Paro wanted to kill him because they found out that he killed the Egyptian with the name of God when the Egyptian was beating the Jew, right? He tried to defend the Jewish people, and what happened? The Egyptian said, here's another Jew who's trying to kill an Egyptian, a hateful person. He's killing our citizens, right? Moshe Rabbeinu was kicked out of the house of Paro. He had to run away to Midian for 40 years. He was a long time in Midian. He found his Bashert there. That was progress also for Moshe, right? He didn't find his wife in Egypt. He found his wife on the run. He found his wife in Midian, and the daughters of Midian, and in the daughters of Yisro. So Moshe Rabbeinu, but he faced a lot of challenges. He faced the challenges when he was in Midian. He faced the challenges in the untold stories of the Torah that the Medrash teaches us about Moshe's travels. Right? He only shows up to the Jewish people as a redeemer at 80 years old. So he had a life before that, and then he faces the challenge of the burning bush. to know that he's the person that God chose to be the Redeemer. And then, of course, all the challenges he has to face with Paroi and the Jewish people, right? The Jewish people, first he comes to the Jewish people and tells them, Hine Mashiach ba, we're coming for the redemption. Zman Gula Aschem. Hashem remembered you, right? The Jewish people were so excited. And then what happens? Paroi makes life more difficult for the Jews, right? Again, right when the Jews thought they're getting progress, what happens? Paroi says, no, I'm gonna double your work, I'm gonna beat you harder. And the Jewish people were broken even harder. Why? It's harder to be broken when you have hope. They had hope, they saw the light, and all of a sudden it was taken, they thought it was taken away from them. They told Moshe, we can't listen to you, stop talking to us. Like Shama and Moshe, they don't want to listen to Moshe. So that Moshe had to face that challenge. And then all the times he had to face the Egyptians and his sorcerers and his ministers. And then he's facing the sea, and he's facing the Egel, and he's facing all the challenges, Amalek. And where does Moshe seemingly slip on something so small? On bringing the water to the Jewish people by hitting the rock instead of speaking to the rock. You think the easiest thing that Moshe had to do was that thing. How complicated was it, right? God told him, go and speak to the rock. And Moshe misunderstood. It wasn't like Moshe saying, I'm gonna not listen to God. He misunderstood. He was talking to the wrong rock. And the first time he hit the rock, so he thought maybe he has to hit the rock. He made a genuine small mistake, a small error. What could he have made already? What was the error? It wasn't like the first time they hit the rock, it worked. That's what God wanted. The second time, he thought maybe he misunderstood. Of all the things that Moshe could have fallen, he fell on something that's seemingly it wasn't so significant. But God said, no, these are the Mei Meriva, these are the waters this is why Moshe is not entering the land. Moshe davened 500 plus times, 515 times he davened Hashem to forgive him and let him into the land. God says no. And God says Aaron HaKohen also, his brother also is not going to land. And he went with the staff. So we see that sometimes, like we learn now in Tanya and Gersa Tshuva, that in the letters of Tshuva from the Alter Rebbe, that the person has to be on their guard. You never know when the Yetzer Hara is going to get you. Not that Chas v'Shalom Moshe Rabbeinu is a big tzaddik, but the Torah says that was something where he slipped. He didn't listen to Hashem. He had an opportunity for Kiddush Hashem, to sanctify God's name, to talk to the rock. And something that seemingly, like literally, I mean, if Moshe Rabbeinu would have been disheartened when the Jewish people told him, get away, right? They really shouted at Moshe when he came to Egypt after the things got difficult. Or when the Jewish people built an Egel, you think Moshe Rabbeinu would be intimidated. Or Amalek comes to fight them, he would think Moshe Rabbeinu would be intimidated. The Jewish people looked at Moshe Rabbeinu whenever Moshe faced a challenge, and they looked up to him. They like a child looks to a father and says, he's our hope. He's our only hope. He's our Rebbe. When you have a problem, you go to your Rebbe. You went to Moshe Rabbeinu. And here Moshe Rabbeinu stands up to every challenge. So we see that even from this we could learn. This is like it says that about the David HaMelech. The David HaMelech had challenges also. Our greatest leaders faced challenges, and they needed to have both the idea of the path and the staff to get through it. And they had harder challenges and easier challenges. Like it says about David HaMelech, about the story of Bathsheba, that Hukim Oyla Shel Tshuva, the David HaMelech showed everyone how to do tshuva, that even a person like David could sometimes slip with the story of Bathsheba. And so we have reasons why Hashem shows us about tzaddikim that sometimes. But what we learn also from this is that you have to be on your guard all the time. You never know when you think you're not vulnerable, it could be when you're most vulnerable. And when you think you're vulnerable, it could be you're the most solid. And to know that and to guide us through us, we go through Mateh and Masei. And that's why these two parshas come together on a Shabbos of Chazak. Shabbos Chazak and it's a Shabbos of the 3 weeks. It's a Shabbos when the Jewish people need strength. And we know Klal Yisrael now, like in the time before we entered with Moshiach, with Moshe, with Yeshua, the Jewish people faced a lot of challenges right before they entered. They had the story of the daughters of Midian. They had the idol of Peor that they worshipped. It was the Gemara tells us that they were caught off guard. The Gemara teaches us in Sanhedrin the Jewish people went to go buy some clothing. Imagine you're traveling 40 years in the desert, and you finally get to the mall, right? So the daughters of Midian set up a mall, and they put up all these ashuk. They made a shuk of clothing and of linen and fine. So the Jewish people finally we could buy something. We're in the desert for 40 years. So, but they weren't careful, And so right before that, they had the sin of the Pa'or. So the Jewish people now also need chizuk. We need strength. We need strength on a lot of levels. So we need strength in our Yiddishkeit. We need strength in staying focused. We need strength to know that the Geula is coming. And it's not a time, they say, they quote all the time now in the time of the wars, they quote that in the time of the first Gulf War in the 90s, in the early 90s, so when George Bush, the president, George Bush the first, when Saddam Hussein attacked Kuwait or took over Kuwait, he wasn't sure how to respond, right? No one wants to go to war, it's difficult. So he got a phone call from Margaret Thatcher, right? The Prime Minister of England. Wonderful, they called her the Iron Woman. She was very tough, very strong, very focused, very clear. She called up George and President Bush and said, George, this is not the time to go wobbly. No, you have to be strong. This is the time to be strong. It's not time to go wobbly. So too, the Jewish people, we're here by the Jordan River in our life, and we're getting ready to go Moshiach. This is not the time to go wobbly. We have to be strong. That's chazak. We have to be chizuk. We have to be like a staff. We have to be strong. We're at the end of our journey. This is not the time to go wobbly. And this is the month of Av. And like the Rebbe teaches us many times, the month of Av is a month of compassion, notwithstanding of everything that happened. Notwithstanding with the destruction of the first temple, the destruction of the second temple, the spies coming back and saying Lashon Hara about Eretz Yisrael, saying evil talk about Eretz Yisrael, and all the other things that happened in the month of Av. The halacha says, the month of Av is a dangerous month. It says don't do anything that's uncertain in the month of Av. Like don't have a court case in the month of Av because it's uncertain how the outcome's going to come. Even if you think that you have everything in order, it's better not. If you have a business deal that you could push it off the signing till after Av, till after Tisha B'Av. So here the halacha says, Mishenichnas Av b'ma'atim b'simcha. When the Av comes in, we lessen in simcha. So it says in Shulchan Aruch, you have to lessen in simcha. So that's literal translation. There's the Hasidic idea that says, Mimatim, how do you get rid of Av, the negative of Av with simcha? But the literal translation is it's the time to be a little bit more careful, more serious. So nevertheless, the month is called Av. Av is a father. Father Karachim Av Abanim. Our father has compassion. So when we open up the parshas and the details of the parshas, not just the general message, like the Rebbe always says, that the main message of a parsha you could find from its name. Therefore, you always have to look at the name of the parsha, even though the names of the parsha is just the name that the people gave, that the Minhag Yisrael it's called. Minhag Yisrael is, we call this Parshas Matos, we call the second parsha Masei, although there's good reasons to call it. But the Rebbe always says we have to analyze the message of the parsha and the names of the parsha. But when you open up the parsha a little bit more, there's a lot of interesting conversations in this parsha. There's a lot of interesting happenings in the parsha. It's kind of things are getting serious. Why? Because the people are starting to deal with the future. Until then they were talking about the present, but here we're talking about the future. We're talking about getting, who's going to lead us into the country? How do we divide the land? What are the borders of Eretz Yisrael? Hello, Reb Shimon. What are the borders of Eretz Yisrael? Who's going to live where? We learned all these laws that the things that weren't really discussed. We discussed we have the battle of Midian. In the beginning of Matos, we learn about the Jewish people take vengeance against Midian because Midian tried to corrupt the Jewish people right before they went into Eretz Yisrael. And we have the daughters of Tzlafcha that they finalized their portion from the end of last week into this week. We have the tribes of Gad and Ruvain that come to Moshe and they ask a revolutionary concept. They don't want to go into Eretz Yisrael. Right? So a lot of things we're opening up the parsha and we're learning about a lot of details that we have to take home and try to apply it to ourselves. What is the message of the sons of Reuven and Gad? So we have a fascinating story. Imagine this. Imagine you're Avram Avinu. If you think about it, Avram Avinu is in Haran. He's in what's today modern day Iraq or Iran, Bavel. He lives over there in Haran or Kazdim. He lives where everyone lived then. That's where people lived. That was society. The population lived over there. They eventually made their way west towards Egypt and towards Eretz Yisrael and other places as time went on. But in the beginning, right, everyone after the flood, everyone lived around Bavel. They built the Tower of Bavel. And Avram was alive, by the way, when they built the Tower of Bavel. So was his father Terach, of course. And then they lived by Nimrod. And then he was in Ur Kazim, but that was all east of Eretz Yisrael. That's right. We come to Ever Yardim. We come from the other side of the Euphrates River. That's where the Jewish people come from. That's where we're called Ivrim. Ivrim is from the other side of the river. So Avram Avinu, why does he come? Why does he start traveling? Why does he start traveling? He starts traveling because he's promised about Eretz Yisrael. He's promised about a land. He's promised about to have the children that are going to live in the land. That's what motivated him to pack his bags with his wife Sarah and to move west towards Eretz Yisrael, because that was a promise, a gift for him. And that Hashem told him that the purpose of Avram, and because Avram is Av Hamoin Goyim, he's the father of all mankind, is that the mankind is dependent on Avram Avinu going to Eretz Yisrael. And it's amazing. I mean, if you think about it, the Jewish people, this week's Parshas Masei, the Jewish people started as a nation, as a people that traveled. What is the first thing we hear about Avram, besides the fact that he's married and he's at the end of Noach? The first message, God picks up the spiritual phone and comes to Avram, and what does he say? Travel, lech lecha. Go travel, get on the road. It's time to go to Eretz Yisrael. And what's this week's parsha, the end of the fourth book? Elam Masei b'nei Yisrael. These are the travels of the Jewish people. We're people that traveled. We always traveled. God says that, how long did I travel? I traveled for hundreds and thousands of years. When did God finally settle? When he came to Yerushalayim, to Yer Kodesh. Where are we always traveling to? We're traveling to Eretz Yisrael, towards Yerushalayim. In our life, we're traveling towards Jerusalem. And here comes Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven, the sons of Gad and Reuven. They say to Moshe, we don't want to travel anymore. We don't want to even cross the river. We want to stay on the other side of the river. Think about it. After everything that they've gone through. And Moshe Rabbeinu tells them that. He says, listen, guys, remember when we sent the spies? You know why we're here for 40 years? Because the spies also didn't want to go into the land. And what's amazing is that they don't go into the land. They work it out with Moshe. They make an agreement. And Moshe says, okay. They tell Moshe, we'll go and we'll cross the river. We'll fight the battles. We'll divide the land with you. But we're gonna stay on the east side of the river. We want to stay in Eretz Yisrael. It's brought down. The Rebbe always says that one of the reasons the Bnei Gad and Reuven wanted to go into Israel wasn't because they didn't want to go into the Eretz Yisrael. They didn't want to go to Eretz Yisrael, which was only a land of 7 nations. Because the land, Avram Avinu was promised 10 lands. When God told him, I'm giving you these lands, he promised him 10 lands. And then it became 7 lands. What happened to the other 3 lands? So the tradition is, like the Rambam brings down in Halacha, the Moshiach comes, the boundaries of Eretz Yisrael are going to expand eastwards. And there's going to be the 3 nations of Kenizi Kadmoni, and that are going to be on the east side of the river. And there's going to be not only that, there's going to be more cities of refuge. They only had 6 cities of refuge on when they came into Eretz Yisrael. And there's going to be another 3 when Mashiach comes, 9 cities of refuge. That's one of the proofs of Mashiach, the Rambam quotes. So here we have the Bnei Reuven and Bnei Gad says, 1 second, why are we going into the place of 7 nations? What happened to the other 3? So they say, well, Mashiach has to come. We want Mashiach now, right? What do we say? We want Mashiach now. Why do we have to wait another 3,000 plus years, right? The Jewish people, since they entered the land, is over 3,000 years. Why do we have to wait 3,000 years till Mashiach comes? We want to be in the reality of Mashiach now. They didn't want to go into the land that's only 7. They wanted it to expand to 10 lands. So on the one side, it looks like they don't want to go into the land. They stopped short, right? They didn't go all the way. And at the end of the day, that's the pshat. That's the simple explanation. And at the end of the day, they were punished. At the end, when it came to the destruction of the temple in the first temple, before there's 3 major exiles. There's the exile of the final exile, which we're remembering on Tisha B'Av, which is the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, the exile of the tribe of Judah, the house of David. Before that, there was the exile of the 10 tribes. That's the main next exile by Sancheriv in the times of Chizkiyahu. And before that, there was the exile of the 2.5 tribes. The 2.5 tribes of Reuven and Gad and half a tribe of Menashe, they went to exile first. Why? Because they didn't enter the land. God kept it in his ledger. At the end of the day, that was considered some sort of sin. It was because they didn't go into the Yarden. They didn't cross the Yarden. They didn't cross the river to live. They only crossed to fight. And as though the Torah in Chassidus we explain that Mikna Rav, and they made a kinyan in Moshe, and they were like shepherds. They were a little bit like Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. They had the same flavor of the issue that the spies had. They just weren't so severe about it. They said we don't want to. It's easier for us to be with our cattle on the east side of the river than to be living in Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael is too much engagement. We don't want to be so involved in the world. We want to be able to sit, and sing songs to God on the east side of the river. But at the end, and Moshe Rabbeinu, they worked it out. The Moshe then accepted their conditions, but they were punished at then. They got taken into exile first. So we see sometimes that there's things are not always so clear in our paths. Like I said, not always when we're going forward is forward, not always when we're going backwards is backwards. And that's what the 42 Maseis, the 42 travels are. That we travel sometimes going forward, and then we think we made major progress, and then we don't realize that maybe it wasn't such progress. And then sometimes we're going backwards, and we think we're going in the wrong direction, and we're really going in the right direction. And what we have to know is that's the way things are. And so you have different types of people in different types of situation. One of the things it says about the Bnei Gad and the Bnei Ruvain was that the fact that they had a lot of sheep and they were shepherds and a lot of cattle, and they were like the fathers. That what is the difference between the fathers, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and the Shvatim, the 12 tribes, besides Yosef and Tzaddik? Yosef and Tzaddik was never distracted. He was always able to serve Hashem in any situation. He was able to serve Hashem when he was by his father. He was able to serve Hashem when he was thrown into a new scenario that he was not used to. He was never, for him to become a servant by Potiphar was something that was unheard of for the descendant of Avram. Avram was a Nasi, was a Melech, and his children were treated like kings and princes. And here's Yosef, which is the apple of his father's eye, and whatever the reason is, the jealousy, whatever, that's all details. But what happens is he ends up in Egypt, he ends up a servant, he ends up a slave. But he doesn't get distracted. Even he wasn't familiar. It was unfamiliar ground for him. It wasn't like he knew about this kind of existence, so he knew how to be. It was totally unfamiliar to him, this new existence. But instead of falling apart, he became the head of the household of Potiphar. And then he gets accused of something outrageous with the wife of Potiphar. He ends up in prison. He ends up in the pit. And he still doesn't fall apart. He becomes the head of this prison. And then at the end, he goes through the path and he becomes the king of Egypt, right? He becomes only power is above him. And all through that, he never lost. He was always focused. So much so that the Torah tells us that just by saying to the wine pourer, remember me, was a punishment. Because he lived a life where he was beyond being affected by the world. And the tribes of Reuven and Gad, they were part of the camp of the people that were threatened by the world. They thought the world was dark and scary. Till today, every time there's a new technology that comes up, what is the first reaction a lot of people have, especially people from the religious circles, not just in the Jewish circles, but in all circles, they get threatened by it. They think it's a threat to their beliefs, if there's AI or if there's industrial revolution. However, throughout the history, that progress in technology was frightening to people of religion. They thought that it's going to be mevalvel, it's going to confuse, it's going to be a distraction to their service of Hashem. Right? The nations of the world also, they believe in a single God, and they're scared that this is going to be a threat to the service of Hashem. I'm not an expert in these subjects, but I'm saying is that there's no such thing as stopping something or saying it's evil, it's not going to work. These things, progress and technology moves, and you have to move with it. It's getting us closer to service of Hashem. But a lot of people get threatened by it. Like Bnei Gad and Reuven, they're about to go into Eretz Yisrael. They were threatened. They were scared to go in. What does it mean? And by the way, it's not a contradiction to them wanting to be with Moshiach, by the way. Because them wanting to be in the times of Moshiach means they didn't want to go through what it takes to get to Moshiach. To get to Moshiach takes effort. You have to go out there. We're in 2,000 years, we're in Galus. The Jewish people are still traveling. From Avram Avinu, the Rebbe Rashab said, from when Avram Avinu was told, Lech Lecha, the Jews became a people of travel. We never stopped moving. We moved in the diaspora. We moved throughout. We had periods of calmness. We had menucha in the times of Shlomo Melech. We had menucha in the times of the first temple. But the Jewish people are people of movement from the times of Avram, because that's how we are as a people. We were people of movement. We go and engage in the world. And Bnei Gad and Reuven wanted to stop. They didn't want to go through all the journeys that we have to go to till we get to Mashiach. They said, we're right here. Why don't we just go in with Mashiach? Why do we have to go through 3,000 years of Galus? So when we put all these things together, And when Shabbos, Parshas Chazak, by definition is a parsha to draw strength. And we start off the parsha with Matos, which is a staff, which strengthens a person's strong stick and a staff to take us through our journeys. And we're Parshas Masei, where we have journeys in our own life, like the Baal Shem Tov says, every single person goes through 42 travels. And every single person, the Baal Shem Tov says, the smart person knows where they are in their travels. Are they in the beginning? Are they in the middle? Are they at the end? So that's the Baal Shem Tov says, that's the person who's paying attention. And we know that even times when we have travels that seem like we're going backwards, we're really making progress. That's itself progress. But we have to have the faith that don't give up. And definitely don't give up right before we're about to cross the river. Like the Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven, after everything's said and done, it wasn't a positive thing. So don't give up at the last moment. Moshiach is about to come, and things may look dark outside, and things may, like the Rebbe always says, right before the sun breaks open to the new morning, it gets the intensity of the darkness gets really dark. Don't get wobbly. Like we said, Margaret Thatcher said, it's not a time to get wobbly now. Now's the time to take your staff. Know this is that you're about to cross the river with Moshiach Tzidkenu. When the month of Av, that even in our worst month, where the halacha says, Mishenichnas Av Mateh B'Simcha, it's called Av, it's called compassion, it's called Rachmim. Menachem is the word Nachama, is consolation. God is consoling us, and we're consoling God. This is a time to stay focused and to know that what do we have to do as individuals? We have to take on more mitzvahs. Those who don't put on tefillin every day should start putting on tefillin at least once or twice a week. Those who have to give tzedakah should give tzedakah. Those who have to light Shabbos candles, light Shabbos candles. Those who have to sharpen their observance of Shabbos, their observance of Shabbos. Those who have to sharpen their kashrus. And all the mitzvahs that we can do now, put on tzitzis, be a proud Jew, learn Torah, teach Torah. If you know something, teach something, like the Rebbe always said. This is a time to be active. Our travels haven't finished yet. It's not time to put down our stick, our staff. It's time to get ready to come. Moshiach is about to come and take us all the way, Shlomo Strauss, all the way from Alaska, which is literally, it's one of the Gvul. This week we learned about the Gvul. We learned about the boundaries of Eretz Yisrael. When Mashiach comes, the Eretz Yisrael is going to mispashit, is going to spread to the whole world. So I mean, Shlomo, you're literally no one could argue. I mean, Seattle people could say is one of the boundaries, but Alaska is definitely a boundary. So
Yeah,
you're all the way from the Tzafa, and it says and the pasuk says, the prophet says, I'm going to gather them from the north. So the Yamamish north, all the way in Alaska, you're going to come back home through Seattle and pick up your whatever all the sparks that you left in Seattle and bring them here to Yerushalayim. So I want to wish everyone, and it's good to see you all. I want to wish everyone a Gavaldik Shabbos. It's Shabbos V'Archim Av. It's not a time it's not a time to get disheartened. It's a time to get strong. It's a time to get chizuk. It's not. We don't go into Av. At the end of the day, is we take on the vort that Mishenichnas Av and Mateh B'Simcha. That the negative things that happened in Av, we have to stay b'Simcha. That's one of the strongest tools that we have. The strongest tools that we have is Simcha, Avos Yisrael. Like we learned about Hacholzu this week, about it's a time to have Avos Chinam, unconditional love, not baseless hate, and it doesn't make a difference. You don't have to get caught up in the river of hate that's passing through. Unfortunately, there has to be something. You have to go against the current, like the salmon make its way to Alaska. How does the salmon make its way to Alaska? It goes against the current. You don't have to go with the current. Whatever the narrative is today, whatever the attitude is today, you have to think for yourself as an individual salmon. Why does he go back? The salmon goes back to set the eggs for the next generation. That's Mesiras Nefesh for the next generation. So we have to know that we have people. We're midgets on the shoulders of giants. There's the reason why we're here is because our forefathers and our mothers and our fathers, thousands of years before us, we were Mesiras Nefesh, self-sacrifice. I just want to finish off quickly a story that I heard on Shabbos. It's an amazing story. A story I heard Shabbos from someone who came to Shul in Tzemach Tzedek, and he said that say it's short because we have a few minutes, that he met a hostage a few weeks ago. One of the last hostages that got out of Gaza. And he said a whole story. He ended up in Crown Heights, and they said, oh, you're here. You know that there was a hostage who came before, that he was sent by another hostage who said, when you get out, I want you to go to the Rebbe and go to the room where the Rebbe broadcasted. There's a special room called WLCC where they had the Rebbe's electronics, where they broadcasted the Rebbe's talks live to the world. So he says, he laughed. He says, you know who was the person who sent him? I sent him. And therefore, I'm also coming back. I want to go to the Rebbe's room after I got out. So he said like this, he said an amazing thing. He said he wasn't a religious observant Jew. He said in the last year and a half, imagine how many years, he was there for a long time. He was the last year and a half as a hostage. He said he took on 2 achlatos. This is not achlata that we could take on in a place that we have the control. He took on the achlata to keep Shabbos, and goes, you know how hard it was for me to keep Shabbos? I was in such darkness that for me to go to the bathroom or to get my food, you had to have these headlights. Otherwise, you couldn't see anything because I had to walk every time far to go to the bathroom and to go to get my food. But on Shabbos, I wouldn't take the light. That's Mesiras Nefesh, 2025, 24. Mesiras Nefesh nowadays. And he said, I took a second achlata. The second achlata was to put on tefillin every day. So the guy said it, and he goes, I put on tefillin every day. So my friend asked him, how did you put on tefillin? I mean, you had no tefillin. He goes, no, I didn't have tefillin, but I put on, every morning I rolled up my sleeve, and every morning I did ear tefillin, like ear guitar, I did ear tefillin. I wrapped every single day the tefillin on my hand, and I put it, I straightened it, and I said the Shema Yisrael. Every single, I didn't miss a day of tefillin. And I could say with confidence that tefillin, that hostage put on Mesiras Nefesh in our times, put on Mesiras Nefesh, that tefillin probably is more meaningful to God than any tefillin that you could put on with physical tefillin, because he really meant it. And I want to say, finish off in a hopeful note, that if God wanted to see the Jewish people after, we went through 70 years of America, and kind of maybe God thought we got spoiled and we forgot what it means to live Mesiras Nefesh. God realized after all these hostages came out, they all talked about stories of keeping Shabbos, of keeping the women trying to keep their Jewish honor, and keeping lighting Shabbos candles, menorah, all the kashrus, fasting. We heard crazy stories. If God wanted to know that the Jewish people still have it, we still have it. And if we have to put on ear tefillin, we'll put on ear tefillin. So he doesn't have to doubt the Jewish people, doesn't have to test the Jewish people. We still got it. So if he wants to just make sure that we still got it, we still got it. And now we could bring the Moshiach. On which everyone good Shabbos and good Chodesh. Thank you for